Welcome to Heart Dialogue, where we believe that meaningful dialogues have the power to inspire, heal, and connect us on a deeper level. In this podcast, it's also about gathering and lifting a whole community up. Let us stand in response to people's cries and generate a current of dialogues for a better world. Let's HTHD! We are trying to raise awareness, create more impact for the stray dog. Want the public to know more about behind the scene of SOSD.
And it's through maybe weeks or even months of rehabilitation that's when they are ready to go into a home. We have lost some dogs to jumping out of balconies, windows. Even sometimes when they get desperate, they can jump out of the grills.
Welcome to Heart Dialogue. Today is a very special episode. We have SOSD President, Dr. Siu. We have the volunteer for rehoming, May, and we have Karen, the head of operation. So today episode is gonna do some good cause because we are trying to raise awareness, create more impact for the stray dogs. Maybe just a little bit introduction about how I come to connect with SOSD. Just a little bit backstory about how this happened. I actually adopted 2 stray dogs 3 months ago. During my birthday, September. I think I couldn't even say it was I was doing the adoption because the puppy get abandoned just I think few days after being born. Their eye wouldn't even open yet, so they were being abandoned in the oil palm plantation in Malaysia. So I'm from Malaysia, right? So me and my parents decided to adopt 2 of them, and because they were very young, or maybe because we didn't know how to actually take care of the puppy. And exactly a month later, 2 of this puppy actually passed on because of infection. So although just 1 month, right, but I was like really sad. So while I was like grieving and then crying at home, I asked myself, is there anything that I can do for both of them? Because I actually didn't want just their life get wasted after their passing, although just 1 month old. So then I started to, I thought maybe I can volunteer myself in a stray dog organization. So I started to research, and then I found SOSD. I looked through what position you guys are looking for, and then I saw there's this fundraising team and then social media. And because as a chartered financial consultant, right, and I'm very into social media as well, and I thought, okay, since this is my forte, why don't I volunteer myself in this position? And law of attraction, and that's how we got connected. Yeah, because of this podcast as well. Yeah. So once again, the purpose of this podcast is to raise awareness, to create positive impact, as well as we want the public to know more about behind the scene of SOSD, how you all get started, the struggle, the challenges, the true story behind. And also emphasizing on the fundraising part. As far as I know, SOSD actually formed back in July 2011.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. So before we get Dr. Siu to talk more about SOSD, right? We can have let's look at a little bit roadmap for SOSD. Yes. Yeah, so that for the audience to have a clear picture of how SOSD get founded. Okay, before we get Dr. Siu, I need to do this shout out, to all the animal lovers. We are on a mission to make a positive impact for stray dogs, and we need your help. By sharing this podcast, right, you are not just spreading the words, you are actually creating a ripple effect. More share means more awareness, more funds, more volunteers, and more impact. So let's unite our love for all the furry friends and create a positive impact. Now let's get Dr. Siu to maybe share a little bit about yourself and what's actually the mission of SOSD.
Thank you very much, Candy. Thanks for having us here. So I'm Takwa. I'm still the president of SOSD after 11 years. So as you mentioned, we were founded in July 2011, but that was really a very informal group at that time.
Okay.
At that time, a group of stray feeders, meaning these ladies, they went out to feed stray dogs. They came together wanting to create some change for the stray dogs in Singapore.
Okay.
At that time, Singapore was a very different place. Stray dogs were all over the place. And then there was very little awareness about them. So the public was very fearful of them. They didn't know that there was a stray dog problem, and the problem was growing. Dogs
What was
were
the
reproducing.
problem?
Dogs
back
were
then?
reproducing.
Okay.
They were growing in numbers. And because Singapore is such an urban area, more and more deforestation happened. We are building more. So
Yes.
there's a lot of habitat of the dogs that were lost. And the dogs were exposed. They started to chase people. So there was a lot of dog-human conflict.
Okay.
And when that happened, a lot of catching and cowling happened. So at that time, not only was adoption poor for stray dogs,
Yes.
there was the default way of managing them by the authorities was to catch and cow. There was no such thing as rehoming and all that, very little. So that was when the group of ladies came together and said, let's try to make a difference. However, they were just a very, very informal group. So I came on board a bit later. I came on board in December 2011. So I was involved in a rescue mission with them. There was some bike incident, and it became, it was in Punggol, bike incident because some dogs chased and bit a jogger. So that incident became very, very publicized because we went on social media and we asked for help. It was then that we started rescuing dogs on a very small scale. So I got together with SOSD, some members, the early members, and we started rescuing, and that created a very positive impact. For the first time in a very big way, Singaporeans saw that there were stray dogs and they saw that, hey, these stray dogs are not all fearful. They're all not to be afraid of, Not all of them are aggressive. They're actually very good companions because we rescued very, very nice dogs.
Yeah.
We actually chased after all the dog catchers. The dog catchers were catching dogs, and we tried to go ahead of them to rescue before the dog catchers could catch.
What would the dog catchers do after they catch a dog?
So after they catch, at that time, they will catch, they will be sent to the pound, and then they will be put to sleep. That was the default. There was no such thing as rehoming and all that, which is the situation now. Things have moved a very long way. At that time, they'll be caught. And then unless somebody comes and bail them out, and we're talking about spending $500, $600 to bail one dog out.
Okay.
That was the situation then. Most of them will be put to sleep. So we actually went against this. We actually rushed, and then we tried to go ahead. We will hear that, dog catchers are coming to this area, and then we will quickly go before them to save the dogs.
How do you get the news then? But I'm just curious.
So we have connections with the people on the ground. So for example, we know that, so of course, because SOSD were comprised of stray feeders,
Yes.
the stray feeders themselves knew, okay, they had connections with the people on the ground, people who look after the dogs. So they knew, okay, dog catchers are coming, let's quickly go. And that was the situation then.
Okay.
So the whole operation created a lot of awareness. Even the ministers listen, of course, the authorities listen. So seeing the success, we started to expand the operations out of Punggol area
Oh, okay.
because there was so much to be done all over Singapore.
So it started all in Punggol, July 2011.
For me, it started. And in July, no, it wasn't in Punggol. It was just they were feeding everywhere. But the big event was in December. That was in Punggol.
Okay.
So in January, I formally joined them. At the time, SOSD was still an informal group. So when I joined them, I said, in order to create change, we really have to formalize the group.
You were really young back then, right? Because, this
So
is the fact. You're very young.
So that time I was 33, 32, I can't remember, so long ago.
It's like exactly my age.
Right. So I was very, very young then. What I am is I'm a medical doctor by profession. So I'm a medical doctor, and I had just started my career at that time. At the time I've come up to do aesthetic medicine.
Okay.
So I was working in a clinic. I started my career. The career was taking off well. But then this was a need. This was urgent. This was urgent, and I had to dedicate time to this cause. It was more like it was really like a calling.
Yes.
I knew this had to be done. There were other people doing this at that time, a lot of other very, very good-hearted volunteers all over Singapore. But everything was very small, very, very disjointed. There was very little conversation between groups and the authorities. And that was what the roadblock was.
I see.
Here we are, the groups were trying to save, the authorities were trying to kill.
Yes.
That was the problem then. So I really felt there was a need for a strong group to come on board, work with the authorities so that we can move policies forward. That was really the intent of it.
I see. So that's why SOSD being registered?
Okay, so we were very clear from the day we were registered. So in 2012, January or March, I think, we registered. And from then we said, okay, in order to create positive change, we have to be not only a society, we have to be registered as a charity and as an institution of a public character, IPC. So an IPC charity in Singapore refers to a charity that follows governance, very, very strict governance rules, such that we are good enough trustworthy enough to get tax deductions for the donors. So we worked towards that. And 2013, we actually got registered as a charity. This was also with the help of many, many kind-hearted people, including ministers like Minister Shanmugam, Minister of Law. And in 2015, we got formally registered as a IPC. So from then on, once we're IPC, it opened a lot of doors because it meant that we can now talk to companies because we're more legitimate. And then, of course, it also means that we could do bigger projects. It means that the public also had more trust in us, so allowing them to donate to us.
I think it's very amazing and impressive that just in a short time span of 4 years, you got registered into IPC.
This is because from the start we had that sight. From the start, the day that we registered as a society, we already said we want to be IPC. On the day that we registered as a society, more than half the members left because they said we don't want to be part of this. They want it to be small scale. They don't want this big thing, this organization with a lot of compliance and rules.
And the responsibilities has come forward.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of paperwork, a lot of governance needed. So yes, some of them left because they feel that they work better in smaller groups, and we respect that. But the ones who stayed behind and grew with us, and actually a few of us are still the founding members, were still around.
What were the challenges that, like, maybe just name a few challenges, throughout this good 10 years while you being the president, right? Maybe just name 3 challenges you face.
It's great that you said a few because I can go on until tomorrow. At the beginning, of course, the most urgent and biggest challenge was donations. Right, we needed to get money to get things going because it's not easy and it costs a lot of money to rescue dogs.
How much does it cost to rescue a dog?
So it depends. Right? If you want to catch a dog, you either do it yourself, and you cannot. You get a catcher that's a couple of $100s, and then there's the medical bills. Medical bills, a simple one would be a few $100s, but if you're talking about severe cases, injuries, and medical illnesses, it can go up to thousands. Then there's housing the dog. You have to get a shelter space. So it's a lot of effort, a lot of money. So at the beginning, of course, donations was at the top of our mind.
Okay.
And space, because at the time when we started, we didn't have a shelter space. We had to rent kennels. And renting kennels was expensive. There was limited space. It was really through fate and through a lot of hard work that we grew the kennel space. At first, I rented a kennel together with another founding member. We could house 8 dogs. Then later, we took another one. We could house 21 dogs. And in 2013, we took another one where we could house 80 dogs.
So from the start, actually, when before 2015, you actually spent from your own pockets for all this costing?
A lot of times we had to. I mean, we had to be ready to come out with money ourselves. But we were so fortunate that the public was very supportive. We always had donations coming in. I still remember when we wanted to get our big shelter space, the one at Pasir Ris Farmway 2. Basically, a lady abandoned the shelter. So we saw the opportunity and we said we should take over the space. But of course, the members were all very fearful. They're saying, we can't manage such a space. How are we going to pay the rent? Because it means the rent increases a lot.
Yes.
So at the time, as a show of sincerity, I had to sell my car. So I sold my car and I said, okay, so all this extra, this money was set aside for the rent and all that. So it was a lot of commitment, right? A lot of commitment and to the cause, right?
Maybe I have to pause a little bit. At this point in time, right, I'm actually very curious. At the back of my mind, I was like thinking, why Dr. Siew willing to sacrifice so much for this organization? What's the reason?
It's really the cause, So once you started, you just want to continue. At that time in 2012, right, there was a lot to be done. There was a lot of connections to be made with authorities.
Yes.
There was a lot of gathering. There was a lot of policies that needed to be changed. And of course, a lot of lives to be saved. So in those early days, it was always race against time to save lives. For example, we will learn that, okay, 4 dogs are impounded and then we have to rescue them. At the time, it was really like that. Or catchers are coming down to save lives. And sometimes you just forget, you don't think about so much about, I sacrifice this. No, you don't think about such things. You think about what's on your mind is I have to save those dogs, right?
For the higher purpose.
You have to save those dogs, Then that's always the most urgent, saving the lives.
Yes.
Then after that, at the back of our mind is always the cause. In order to save lives, we have to get this done. So we're very clear-minded about that.
Yeah, so touching to hear that, actually. So you were mentioning, back to the challenges, you mentioned about the donation, the space.
And of course, getting volunteers, and I'll say a few more, getting volunteers, getting the authorities to work with us. Because at the time, it's a situation whereby the authorities have done things a certain way. They were catching and cowling for years.
Yes.
Right, and we wanted to change their mindset. So how are you going to do that? We were not nobody, I'm not connected. We are not rich people. So what we had to do was to really do it through hard work and sincerity. To do the work on the ground, show the authorities that we mean business and we really have a way of doing it and that this is feasible. So, for example, when it came to trap, neuter, release, we are of the very strong conviction that the way to manage the stray dog population is not through catching and cowling, but by trapping them, sterilizing them, releasing back, and rehoming them.
Okay.
So at the time, of course, there was a lot of resistance to this.
Yes.
So how did we convince the authorities? We did it ourselves. So some volunteers chose a place. We chose Pulau Ubin, which was easy because it's a community, it's an island. And we went there and we sterilized all the dogs there. And then we showed the authorities that, hey, look, this can be done, it's feasible. And look, now the complaints have less, the dogs are controlled, and everybody is happy and it's good for everyone. So from there, then we can manage to convince them and expand.
So one thing that I learned from this story, right, is that because whenever, as human being, right, when we bump into a problem, what we do usually we will blame. We'll start to blame, this authority problem, that problem. But what you did different was instead of blaming, right, you show proof, you take the action, and then you show them that this can be done. And from here, you actually influence them.
Yep. So it's I would say yes, and I would say that at the beginning I was 30s. I was also very hot-headed. I also blamed them. I did blame them, and this I must give credit to the authorities. We're talking about AVS. We must give credit to the ministers. There were very good-hearted ministers who actually reached out, and they were telling us that no, instead of going down this loggerhead, this very aggressive route, let's work together. So they reached out, we reached out, they reached out, and we reached out, and we sort of met a mutual ground, and that's how things really got going.
I see. And since we get May and Karen over here, right, maybe Dr. Siu can share a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 very memorable stories. Maybe just one memorable story that's you all have worked for maybe a particular actions or.
Well, there's so many stories, but for me, the most memorable story is always my own dog, right? So I adopted my first rescue, I adopted during that first rescue in December. That was my dog, Bacon. So you still see him on the logo. Adopted him.
Okay.
He was with us and he just passed away in February this year. So that's really very memorable because we had to go down, we had to rush and save him. We got him adopted. We found a very good home for him, but he just didn't want to leave. So he wanted to stay with me. And that's how I adopted him.
I see.
That's one very memorable story. There's so many. I can tell you that one other very memorable story is how we were always running on volunteers. And then one day we decided we needed staff. And then we approached Kieran and we said, Kieran, can you please help us? We really need someone to manage the shelter.
Okay.
And that was our first hire. So to me, that is also super memorable because that was the turning point, also a turning point of SOSD.
Okay.
We had our first permanent staff, and that's the only way you can move forward.
When was that? Though?
Exactly. We are 9 days away from my 10th year.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not easy to find a Singaporean or someone who is willing to dedicate their life to this cause, and plus not for a lot of money.
I see.
So it was really by surprise that we chanced upon Kieran, who was actually a fundraising volunteer at the time. I approached Kieran and said, would you like to join us full time? And she said yes. And from then on, that's how we managed to get the shelter in order and how we managed to expand operations.
I see. We will deep dive into Kieran's story later on. Then what about May? When did you join SOSD?
I think I went in, it was a little bit, I think I just, put one foot in and then there was no looking back. It's a deep, dark hole, Once you get in, you'll never be able to get out.
Like what makes you wanted to be a volunteer? Because it's a volunteer, you're a volunteer for the rehoming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the story?
I started off pretty innocently, I just messaged on Facebook and a volunteer got back to me. I had some free time in my hands and I never had a dog before. I was never in contact. My family never had dogs. I never grew up with dogs. So I thought, it would be an interesting adventure. So I got into it. And then quite easily and quickly at that time, they passed me a dog to take care of. And it was a really... It was challenging and it wasn't easy because the dog barked a lot and I was living in a condo, so next door had people and it wasn't easy. So at the end of the day, I couldn't keep the dog, but what I could do was I could continue fostering. So I went from a potential adopter to becoming a fosterer. And at the time, my living arrangement wasn't permanent. So I was gonna be moving around home, so I couldn't adopt one dog.
Yes.
At some point, I would be moving back with my mum, so I couldn't keep a dog because my mum doesn't like dogs. So I was very firm on just fostering dogs. And then, so I fostered several dogs. And then when I finally got my own permanent home, I continued fostering. And that's when I foster failed. And he's a senior dog. He's Rusty. He's 12 this year. And coincidentally, it was Dr. Stew that rescued him.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long did you join SOSD? Sorry, I think
maybe 6 years. 2018, I started. Yeah. And then at the time when I couldn't foster, I had no dogs. And then Kieran and Lynette...
What do you mean by foster?
Oh, foster. Okay, so fostering is taking care of a dog temporarily and giving them a home and teaching them how to be a dog at home, teaching them right from wrong, to be comfortable at home. These things can sound very, it sounds like intuitive, right? But actually for a lot of these street dogs, it's not. Something so simple as wearing a collar, learning how to walk on a leash, being close to people, liking touch. To us, it sounds so simple and something that dogs should automatically do. Yeah. But with street dogs, it is quite different. They need a bit of rehabilitation.
So how did you actually, how did you foster them? Did you get a trainer or where do you learn how to?
At that time, I think the volunteers that work in the shelter and the existing rehomers then, they're very good at matching fosterers to profile of dogs. So I just trusted them and they just passed me whichever dog they felt was good for my profile. Single lady living in a home. So they gave me a lot of adult dogs and the senior dogs. Okay. And I started from there. But it's not without its challenges, I think. As a fosterer, you need strong rehomers to be there for you, to answer your questions any time of the day, even on the weekends and nights.
When you mentioned about the rehoming, right? Like how you actually profile which stray dogs suits which profile of?
Yeah, I think you have to work very closely and hand in hand with people at the shelter, because people at the shelter and the people who rehabilitate them, they know the dogs very well at the shelter. So we have to rely and trust them to know the dogs, as well as being able to share and read the profile of these potential adopters or fosterers.
I see.
And we trust them to do the matching. So we have a very good matchmaker here. She has matched me with all my dogs, and it has never gone bad once.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk a bit about the whole rescue process, like the whole foster rehoming process, because I think the public may not be very clear.
So I think once the dog goes into the shelter, that's when the shelter volunteers and the staff would then assess the dog's temperament, where they at which stage do they feel that these dogs are rehomable. And it's through maybe weeks or even months of rehabilitation that's when they are ready to go into a home.
Rehabilitation means that you train them, what's it, rehabilitation? What would you all do for the rehabilitation?
So like May said earlier, the dogs don't come like knowing how to wear a collar and walk on leash. So a lot of them, they're even like so shut down the moment they come and they wouldn't even eat. Yeah, so it's a long process of getting them comfortable to put a collar on, to start bringing them out for walks. It can take like anything from weeks to even years sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, so before a dog knows how to walk on leash, it's quite risky to pass them to potential adopters or fosterers, because not everybody has a skill of like teaching a dog how to be okay with the leash and going out for walks.
I see.
And there's a very good chance of them losing the dogs in these situations if they do try to like just put a collar on and drag the dog out.
I see.
Yeah.
Does a dog will be like very insecure? Is it common for the stray dog?
It is super common. Yeah,
Will they
because a lot
bite
of them
people or like
so most of the times the dogs are not aggressive, but they are very fearful. So their reaction could either be to run away from you, or they'll be very frozen and shut down and they just don't want to move. And some dogs, because they feel like they have no choice,
Okay.
they're already in this small little enclosure and you are still trying to touch them, that's when they feel like, okay, I need to protect myself. Then some of them, they might react by like showing their teeth or snapping at you.
I see.
We do train our staff and volunteers to know how to interact with them so that we make sure the dogs don't bite anybody.
So how do both of you work together in terms of rehoming the dogs?
I think on our side for rehoming, what we do is we get in profiles, so people writing in with an interest to adopt or to foster. And our form now is like quite extensive.
Okay.
So we have a lot of questions that we ask in the sign-up form. So when we receive it, we have quite a good idea of whether they're suitable or not and what kind of dogs we can match with them.
So after the rehabilitation, then May takes over, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we take the lead from people at the shelter when they say that these dogs are ready to be rehomed.
I see.
And they're ready to go home. Or maybe if they feel like this dog will do better in a foster home, then we will take over from there. So that's what we do. But at the same time, I think rehomers also have to have a lot of nuances when it comes to human interaction and understanding whether or not the family is a right fit for the dog. As an animal welfare group, our focus and our only focus is on the welfare of these dogs, and we want the best for them.
How do you assess, like you mentioned about the form, right? It's very detailed. So maybe can you share a little bit like some of the criteria which you think it's very important?
Yeah. So I think one of the things we take note of is whether or not they have children, young children. I think this is a bit more important now than it was before, because the dogs that we have now, they're at the late stage of the trap, neuter and release program. So all the very friendly dogs that we've trapped and neutered very early on, they've already been rehomed. And now we're already 6 years into it. We've just got another 5-year renewal this year to continue the trap and neuter efforts. So the dogs that we're getting in these days, they are deemed a little bit more challenging. Because they are a bit more fearful, like what Kieran said. They're not as friendly, they're not as human friendly, and they're a bit more suspicious of surroundings and things like that. A lot of times, the dogs that we have to rehome now, it's not so much because they're friendly and easy to rehome, but because they have lost their habitats to deforestation and when the government is taking back land to make way for new buildings and things like that. So sometimes these dogs come to us not by choice, and yet they have because they have nowhere to go.
Yes.
So because of that, we are seeing a change in dynamics of the temperaments of the dogs we have now these days compared to 5 or 10 years ago. That's a real shift in the dogs that we have. And because of that, we have to be more careful in the families that are able to take these dogs.
So the first thing is whether the family have children, and then what are the other criteria?
I think a very big aspect of being able to see whether a family is suitable is their attitude and their approach towards these dogs. I think attitude is very important because at the end of the day, with the dogs that we have now, we want families to be able to accept these dogs for who they are and not who we want them to become. Because with these dogs, it's putting them into our lives, a very human-centric life.
Yeah.
And sometimes we give unrealistic expectations to these dogs. You know, sometimes we want them to be lap dogs.
Yes.
We want to be able to carry them.
Yes.
But these dogs they have their own, likes and dislikes.
Yes.
And we just have to accept them for who they are and love them for who they are. I think that's really what we want to find in adopters. And to appreciate them lah.
Yeah.
Because dogs are like us. None of us are perfect. And these dogs too, we can't expect them to meet our expectations 100%.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when we talk about like rehoming and especially the dog are a few years old already. They are who they are already. Their personality is there.
That's right.
It's not that it's not that when we say whether or not they have children, it's not that people with children cannot adopt them. It just means that we have to find a suitable dog who is good with children.
Yeah.
That's what we mean. That's what we mean and all that.
I see.
I mean, the rehoming process is actually a very long one. So maybe
Can you share a little bit about the rehoming process?
Yeah, sure. So first they write in on the website and then they will be in touch with a rehomer who will then share with them a little bit more about the process of rehoming. At the same time, I think last year we started this pre-adoption briefing, which we open up. It's a Zoom call and we open it up to all members of the public. And they can attend it if they're not sure on whether or not adopting a dog is right for them. And if you do sign up to want to adopt a dog from us, you also have to attend the briefing as well because it's a very comprehensive 1-hour briefing that lists down all the things that you should be taking note of if you want to adopt a dog. And then from there, if you're still keen, actually after attending the briefing, quite a lot of people drop off. We do our best not to scare people off, but they also have to be fully aware of what they're getting themselves into if they want to adopt a Singapore Special.
I think it's okay that people drop off. At least they know that what's coming and they are ready to accept. If they drop off means they are not ready and it's good for the dog as well.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And actually it saves the volunteers time following up with them.
Yes.
And then we can really zoom in and focus on the ones that actually continue on with the journey.
True.
Because a lot of people are not, they when they think of dogs, sometimes they want, like what May said, a different kind of dog, a dog that plays fetch with you. Then maybe that's so we're saying, okay, I mean, it's great that you would like a dog. Consider another way to get a dog rather than adopting if you are ready.
Okay.
I would say again, the briefing really helps potential adopters understand whether or not adopting a Singapore Special is right for them because it does come with its challenges.
And right now at the shelter, right, how many dogs are actually waiting for rehoming?
So we have 2 shelters. One is the one at the Animal Lodge in Sungai Tengah. So this one are the dogs that are kind of like transitioning until they can get adopted. We have about 60 dogs here. But I would say about 20 are more or less almost ready for adoption. But of course, I would say only like 3 to 5 are easy dogs.
Oh.
Yeah, the rest of the 15 could be very high flight risk or they have some issues meeting strangers. Yeah, so it could be quite challenging introducing them to new people or new potential adopters, and that actually reduces the chances of adopters wanting to even consider adopting them.
Is there any ways or strategy to increase the chance of people to adopt such?
That's why I think it's important for the rehoming team and the shelter team to work closely together. So when the rehoming team receives an inquiry, I actually look through the profile, and then in a way, I will kind of look out for adopters that could potentially take a more challenging dog.
Okay.
So like based on the profile, like if it's like a grown adult couple and they have no children and they don't plan to have children and they live in a condo. So I will try to look for a dog that is not HDB approved and a dog that could maybe be a little bit more challenging to take care of. Because, they're not going to have kids. It's going to be fairly manageable.
I see.
Yeah.
We also have a second shelter.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have another shelter in Jurong Island. That one currently has about 100 dogs. And Jurong Island is a island that's like away, and we kind of need to like apply pass to go in. So only staff goes in. So the dogs there are less socialized with strangers, and the process of getting them out to shelter requires our current shelter in Sungai Tengah to be available. Like we need to have available kennels, then we can move these dogs out.
So that's sort of like the two-step process. Those on Jurong Island have to come first to Sungai Tengah, and in Sungai Tengah they have to be rehabilitated and ready, and then we pass them over to rehoming team.
So
Sungai Tengah, then Jurong Island.
Jurong Island to Sungai Tengah.
Jurong Island to Sungai Tengah, I'm learning. And then
to a home.
To a home, yes, yeah.
So there's always a sense of urgency, I think, on the rehoming side to find these dogs homes. Because when you adopt a dog, or if you foster a dog, then you're freeing up one kennel space for another dog to be rescued and saved that can come in either from the streets, from Singapore Island or from Jurong Island.
So for those audience who are listening right now, right, in this podcast, if they are ready or they feel like, or they just want to venture out, whether are they suitable, they can just go directly to SOSD website, or maybe you can share the steps exactly where can they find the form to submit.
There's an adopter sign-up form on the website, and there's also a fosterer sign-up form. But if you feel like all of this is a little bit too overwhelming for you, we definitely do need volunteers as well. So volunteering is a big part of this group, where we are basically run on volunteers with a handful of staff. So we have a lot of sections to volunteer. You can volunteer at the shelter, volunteer in rehoming, you can volunteer for social media like you mentioned. So you can go online, look at our website, and there's a lot of things you can check out there. Yeah.
Sure.
I think one thing that is across the board, if you want to help out for a dog shelter, one thing that's really important, I find, is commitment. Volunteering is not a one-time thing.
Yes.
You cannot expect to come one day. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Wow, so passionate. You have to be passionate.
So volunteering is a like long-term commitment.
Yes.
I think like Dr. Siu has been volunteering for like 12 years, 13
12 years, yeah.
And May has been with us for 6 years.
6 years already.
I think it really takes a long-term approach to really be able to make a difference.
Yes.
Because that's when you really get to know how the organization works, how things are run, and then you're really able to make contribution and make change, and get to know how to handle the dogs, get to know the dogs, and then you can really make things work out the way you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
So currently, I would say probably one of our biggest challenges is finding committed volunteers. Now that we are more stable, we do have very kind-hearted souls who help us donate, but we are having problems finding people who can volunteer their time, especially in hectic Singapore. And now that COVID is over, everybody is back to their own lives. So we find it more and more challenging to find volunteers who are willing to not only walk the dogs, but to run administrative roles like fundraising, head a team, lead people. And these are thankless jobs, to be honest, and it really takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, all these are going to be like all the operational challenges, right? Yeah, we'll come to the Kirian part in a while. And May, thank you, May, for your time. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Did we finish with the adoption process though?
Is there anything to add on? Because I'm not sure. Is there anything?
Okay. Maybe I'll just go through that.
Yeah.
So once they've signed up and they've attended the pre-adoption briefing, we can do a virtual house visit. We will need to have a look at the house. So it can be done virtually or it can be done in person. So it depends on the rehomers. The rehomers are all volunteers. We have about 50 of us. And what we look out for generally in a home visit is not really how big or small your house is, or not how cluttered or dirty your house is. We really look more at the safety aspects, because unfortunately we have lost some dogs to jumping out of balconies, windows. Even sometimes when they get desperate, they can jump out of the grills. So it's more of the safety aspect. So we can recommend to them to putting a baby gate or a playpen fence by their front door. And we also, we require all our adopters to grill their home as well. So now invisible grills is so readily available, and you can grill it as well. Or you can use window restrictors as well. If your house is tenanted, sometimes the landlord doesn't let you grill your home. So we understand, and it's on a case-by-case basis, but generally for the safety of the dog, that comes first. And if you can grill your house, you should.
Okay.
It really gives you a peace of mind as well when you open your windows to air your house and ventilate it, that the dog is safe, and you don't want to go home one day not seeing your dog at home and wondering where it went, right? Especially if you live on a high-rise floor, which most of us do in Singapore. So it's more of the safety aspect during the house visit, and then subsequently you can meet the dog as well. And we encourage you to meet the dog a few times, because sometimes one time is not enough. So you can meet the dog a few times, bring your family members as well to meet the dog. And if need be, we can also bring the dog to your house to see how the dog interacts in your home environment and in your neighborhood. And then after which, if everyone is agreeable in your family, including the helper, that's very important.
If there's any helper.
Yes, because sometimes you really have to talk this out, it's bringing a life into your home for 15 years, 10, 15 years. And sometimes the family members, they didn't discuss who is going to be the main caretaker. And then if it goes to the helper, it wasn't discussed with the helper. So you really have to have a very big discussion with every member in your household, even the helper, on who the main caretaker will be, who will be bringing the dog for walks, who will be feeding the dog, things like this. It's a overall change in lifestyle, so it's a huge decision to bring a dog into your house. So things like that, we just have to prompt the adopter sometimes.
Okay.
Has these questions been asked? And then, we gently ask, who will be the main caretaker? How long will the dog be alone at home? And things like that. So there's a lot of nuances when it comes to rehoming one dog. And after which we have some items that we require the adopters to buy. So for example, we require all our dogs to be on a martingale collar. I think a lot of adopters prefer the harness, which is like a wrap around the body. Yes. But a lot of our dogs have actually run off on the harness before. As long as they struggle, they can come out quite easily from the harness. So a martingale is to ensure their safety and to ensure that, because the martingale actually tightens when pulled and tugged. So there's less chances of the dog coming out of the collar when they're on a martingale collar, and it doesn't have a buckle as well. So it will be less likely to malfunction on a walk if they're nervous. So when you bring a dog for a walk, the most important thing is to be able to bring the dog back.
Yes.
Yeah, to prevent them from going missing. Because a few of us have been on so many dog searches, and it's very stressful, not just on the adopter, but on the volunteers to have to come out to help to search for the dog as well. Another very important thing is to have a GPS tracker, now that we're talking about lost dogs, to invest in a good GPS tracker so that you can find the dog in the event the dog goes missing. So we can focus our energy and efforts into one location and one direction rather than going all over and just trying to find the dog.
The GPS tracker usually will be inserted which part of the...
it will be on a collar. So for all our dogs, we require 2 collars. One will be where the leash is attached to, and the other one is an independent collar where the GPS is on. Because sometimes when the dog struggles, they come out of the collar which you're holding the leash to. And then if your GPS tracker is on that collar, the GPS tracker comes out as well. So we need the GPS tracker to be on a separate collar in case the first collar comes out when they struggle and run off, if they have high flight risk, which means the instinct is to run and to run off if they're nervous. We have a lot of those dogs now. So GPS tracker is really very important. And once you've got all those things ready, then you can bring the dog back and you can start a homestay trial. And a homestay trial can be 1 to 3 weeks depending on how the dog is adjusting to the home. And then if everything goes well, you'll be signing adoption papers and the dog will officially be yours.
I see. I think that maybe takes about 1 to 2 months time.
The longer ones may take up to 2 months, possibly the more challenging ones. But as of now, we're trying to aim for 3 to 4 weeks or 3 to 5 weeks. Because we really do need to get things moving to be able to help and rescue more dogs. Yeah.
Anything to add on more about the rehoming?
It's very interesting that the rehoming process is actually, we're thinking we're rehoming the dog, but a lot of it is actually human interactions. So the rehoming volunteers actually have to be very good in their EQ. They have to speak to people.
Yes.
So there's a qualification for the rehoming volunteers.
I think going into rehoming, I was a little bit blindsided because I was like, oh, everyone who writes in is definitely going to get a dog from us because they want a dog. But it was only through like cases then I realized that I think you really learn with every case. And even after a few years of doing rehoming, I am still learning with every new family that I'm speaking to how to be better with my approach, how to be softer but yet get my point across. And more importantly, how not to offend people, you know, because everybody comes in with good intentions. They want a dog and they want to save a life. So it's a lot about managing their expectations, giving them time to think about it, and making sure it's a good match as well at the end of the day, and that they are committed to the dog for life, financially, emotionally, you know, and so it's been a great journey actually, and I've enjoyed meeting people. You do meet some families that maybe a little bit more nasty. And then with rehoming, it's really ups and downs in this journey. But with every down, you'll be met with the next potential adopter that makes rehoming so worth it. Because you see them loving a dog for life and dedicating all their time and energy to this dog like a family member. And you know, that's when you get motivated again and you do the next case. It's never ending.
If you have time, right, could you just maybe spend 1 or 2 minutes to share one story about the rehoming process? Yeah, we just...
maybe I can share with you one of my more recent ones. So I was fostering this dog called Ottawa, and I brought her in for a staycation. Supposedly, it was meant to be 10 days just to see how she does at home. But after a few days of having her, see how she enjoys being in a home environment, I couldn't bear to put her back in the shelter. And if I bring her, keep her at home, one more dog can go into the shelter. So I ended up fostering her for almost 5 months. But it's with its highs and lows. She's a little bit destructive at home, but yet she's so cute. So it's like, you want to scold, but you can't. And the interesting thing about her was there were a couple of potential adopters that were really very close to bringing her back for homestay. We've done the house visit, they've purchased the things and things like that. But, you know, due to one reason or another, she ended up being back with me. So there was one failed homestay, another adopter that bought everything, but unfortunately there was a family emergency and they couldn't bring Ottawa back home. So, you know, you're met with these like highs and lows of being a fosterer and being a rehomer when you meet so many different families. And she's been to a couple of adoption drives as well. People seem interested in her, but in the end never sign up for her. So, you know, it's an emotional roller coaster. It's like, yay, got family. Oh, no family. Yay, got family. Oh, no family. And then, I have to walk her again, you know, for another few more weeks because right now there's no one for her. So, you know, you don't know where the light at the end of the tunnel is, and you just do your best and you take care of her while she's still with you.
Maybe later on you can share her photo to us so we can put onto the, you know, to the screen.
And then you write like emotional posts about her, hoping someone will take note and write in for her. So, you know, as long as they don't have a potential adopter for her, you just keep wondering in the back of your head, when will the time come? So, I think a lot of patience is involved, and just loving her while she is with you and giving her what you can. And
their life is so short, right?
Yeah, and the life is so short. And I think at the end of the day, when you do find a family that is like completely smitten with her, and they're not looking at any other dog but just her, they wrote in only for her. Sometimes there's a lot of fate, timing and opportunity and luck that, you know, a family and a dog, they come together.
Yes.
And it's a happily ever after story, and a lot of times it's about gut and intuition.
Yes.
You know when it feels right, and you know that they are the right family for her, and it makes the whole wait very, very worth it. And
Yes.
it's a fulfillment like no others. Even if you're not a fosterer, even if you're just a rehomer, and if you don't have your own dogs, if you're not fostering, the rehoming journey is very, very fulfilling because there's so many dogs at shelter waiting for you.
Yeah.
And you are the only way the dog can get adopted into a home.
They can check the photo of the dogs
Yeah.
through the website, right?
Yes,
for
that's
the
right.
audience who are listening.
That's right.
Yeah, see how cute they are.
Yeah. So it's the fulfillment that really drives you. And I think the support network from different volunteers and being there for you and working together for the same cause, our intentions are all aligned and the goal is very focused, then I think everyone can work together very nicely despite the differences. We are here for these dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Can I just
beautiful.
add in, earlier on you were asking something about the criteria, right?
Yes,
Of
yep.
like adopting a dog.
Yep.
To be frank, our one and only most important criteria is when you adopt a dog, give the dog a good home for the rest of its life. Despite whatever challenges you might have. Make effort to make things work out. Even if you're moving from a landed house to a condominium or a HDB, there are ways you can keep the dog.
Have to be committed.
Yes, exactly. So a lot of the other questions that we ask, like whether you have a garden, whether you live in a HDB or a studio, whether you have kids or you have old folks, all these or whether you have a helper, do you work full time, are you away from home a lot of time? All these questions are more for us to find out like what kind of dog should we recommend to your
Based
family.
on your lifestyle and your profile.
It's not to rule you out as an adopter altogether.
For those who have a pool, for example, landed house have a pool and maybe, like professionals.
Yeah, of course, if they have a bigger house, then we'll recommend like a dog that's bigger size or very high energy. Yeah.
I see.
But I think a very important part about adoption is it's to be there for them during the good times, but more importantly, to be there for them during the bad times.
Like when they are getting older and when they are sick.
And
or even when they have behavioral issues.
Yeah. Because like dogs are like us, we change over our lifetimes. We're not who we were when we were 15. And with these dogs too, they only have 10, 15 years.
Yes.
And they're always changing, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So owning a dog is really with its ups and downs, but to be there for them during the good times is very easy.
Yeah.
Because, everything is fine and happy, but being there for them during the bad times, when they're sick, when they develop behavioral issues, when they used to be friendly to strangers, but not anymore, these are times where it's easy to give up.
The real test is when the downside, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for being part of this incredible dialogue. We hope this episode has inspired you to embrace heart-to-heart dialogue in your own life. If you love to share your stories with us, DM us, comment below, or use the hashtag #HTHDstories. Your voice matters, and we can't wait to listen and learn from you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with your friends. Remember, every genuine conversation has the power to make a difference. Let's make an impact together. Till next time.